Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems built on stacks secured by Bitcoin. Today we have a special guest, Orlando from StackerDAO Labs. StackerDAO is DAO generation and management with legal tech for Bitcoin DAOs via stacks. Private beta is launched and live now. They're doing some testing, they're working out the bugs. Orlando, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Glad to be here. Pretty busy week, so we just launched our private beta, um, and we did it with our launch partner, Megapont. So we launched MegaDAO, which is the DAO associated with Megapont. If you're not familiar with Megapont, they're a great community on both Stacks and Ethereum, but it kind of started on Stacks, and so the DAO is living on Stacks. And so we're super excited to partner with them as kind of our first project. Both exciting and a little bit anxiety inducing, but their DAO is now officially live. So now people can go on to the proposals, vote, etc. So we're pretty excited about that, and we're kind of excited for the future now. We have some pretty cool projects in our pipeline, some new DAOs that will be launching both from existing projects as well as new projects that that I think are still currently in stealth mode. There's my dog, my greyhound there. We're pretty excited for what the future has in store for DAOs on Bitcoin.
Hey, James, how are you today, my friend?
Oh, doing good on this Friday. Yeah, no, super excited to hear. You guys working with Megapont on the kind of your first release of these DAOs. Just really interested to hear, like, pull back the curtains a little bit and see how all of that went. I imagine it being the first time, there was probably quite a bit to work out, and kind of some of the fundamentals of like creating a DAO, just what kind of things did you base it upon, and things like that.
And before we jump in, one thing we did want to share. So we released the beta version here of the Zero Authority Marketplace. Right now, the name is going to be Cerulean. It's going to be a place where you could come log in as a creator or talent, whether you're a developer, whether you're doing smart contract auditing, whether you're creating memes, whether you want to do TikTok videos. This is going to be a place where you're going to be able to find any kind of talent in the ecosystem. So right now we have a couple of bugs, but when you come here and you click on offer a service, you'll be able to sign up for that, log in. Eventually, you'll be able to click on some of these labels, find profiles of the people that you're looking for, and whether that's you want an NFT artist, you want some developers, you want someone that focuses on podcast content, whatever it is, you'll be able to find them here. And just wanted to put that out and let people know we're ready to start signing some people up and getting some traction and seeing what kind of ways that people use this marketplace going forward. So super stoked. There's been a lot of talk and planning, and Mariaverse and Kenny and Algorithm and James and Rafa and Advisor, and so many people have come together. Dio and Vidya have also given us advice, and go sign up for they put a residency request in, so please support them as well. So coming back to Orlando, sorry for that, had to get that announcement out that we're finally
of course
sign some people up. But let's get back into it. I'm going to share DAOs on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so right now, if anyone's watching this video here, so this is our at least our landing page. Pretty simple right now, and from here you can launch our app. There's a survey here if you want to join our private beta, and then sorry, my computer's being a little slow, but probably because I have a million windows and tabs open. But it leads to a type form. We also have links to an overview of our platform and our smart contracts, our GitHub, so you can find our contracts there. Our contracts are open source, and a link to our Discord and to our Twitter. And so I guess, should I just do a quick overview maybe of the app?
Yeah, and before we jump into, what are some of the use cases that you're seeing? Obviously, Megapont, everyone in the Stacks community knows about Megapont and what they're building, but how will their DAO look? Is it based around NFT token gating? What are other people asking to build DAOs around?
I would say kind of everything. So one of the beautiful parts of our StackerDAO operating system, so the I'll just say StackerDAO OS to keep it simple. The StackerDAO OS is our DAO smart contract operating system. So it's the smart contracts that basically form the technical implementation for a DAO. And one of the beautiful parts about it is that it's very modular, which allows us to basically form like different DAO, easily form different DAO structures and templates. And so, you can really kind of use any sort of token or even whitelisted addresses. So I've seen some DAOs that are obviously using fungible tokens as their governance tokens. I've seen DAOs wanting to use NFTs. I have seen combinations. So one structure that we kind of like is using NFTs to submit proposals and essentially be a member of the DAO. But then to vote, you need to have the NFT and then also have some fungible token, and your voting power is a function of the fungible token. And so what's nice about this is that protocols and projects can basically almost kind of like gate their NFT gate their community through the NFT. And this is important because it allows projects to basically kind of make sure that the people that are part of their DAO or their community are the people that they want to be there, and people that are kind of or like receiving some kind of reward or incentivized or really having some kind of stake in the actual governance of the project itself. And so it allows, let's say, a protocol to reward its users, maybe with like a non-transferable NFT. So that way the NFT can't really be sold, and you're getting a reward, and you're making sure that's only the people that have actually kind of like used your protocol who can actually submit proposals and be a member of your DAO. And then maybe your protocol kind of distributes tokens to people, the more that people use your protocol or your product, right? So then if you're a power user, right, or if you use the product more frequently, or maybe you're a contributor to the DAO, so you get more of the DAO's tokens, more of its fungible tokens, you can then use that for your voting power. So then you're providing more voting power based off of like kind of more activity with your product or protocol, while making sure that the people who are participating in governance are people who have actually kind of have helped to kind of build the project and build the protocol itself.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear how people are developing. In a lot of ways, it's like different guardrails to kind of get what you want out of the governance, right? So everybody's kind of working out, okay, how do we want to reward users? How do we want people to be represented, their equity? And it does make sense. Like if someone buys an NFT and is using a protocol to then use like their mega token to vote or something like that, the person that owns the NFT is likely much more involved in the project than someone that just bought maybe $10 of mega token or something. So
yeah, and exactly, and and again, like, and the beauty about NFTs is that, again, it could just be like a normal NFT that you can trade and you can buy on any NFT exchange, or it could be non-transferable, right? So then that way, like, because like the whole purpose of the NFT then is really just to identify certain people, not so much to kind of like create this asset that then is tradable, because the asset is the actual token itself, right? Or by the token itself, I mean the fungible token. And so really you're using NFTs as kind of a tool to identify certain people. And by making it non-transferable, you make it so that they can't then just like, so that way you can have like someone else kind of come in and get the NFT. I mean, it's not perfect. People can still buy the wallet. But the idea being that people are still kind of like a lot less likely to do that, kind of sell their wallet, than they are to just kind of like sell a transferable NFT. Or not, or they can just have have a normal NFT be used as well. And we've also seen situations where people just want whitelisted addresses as members, and that's just more of like almost more of like a multi-sig, really. So we've seen like a ton of different demand for sort of different arrangements. And some of this too is like, we've done our own research and we've done a lot of kind of like work with development, so stuff that we're kind of just building ourselves. And sometimes we will suggest it to different projects. So one thing we do is we talk to each project, especially now that we're kind of in this private beta mode. With the private beta, we're kind of working alongside different teams and making sure we're kind of building the DAO in a way that makes sense for their project. And so we're kind of in some ways taking like an advisory / consulting role, kind of, especially with respect to governance structure. And so sometimes we will kind of suggest different structures, given kind of the feedback we get of what they want, kind of like what their goals are for their project or their protocol. And so sometimes we've suggested some of these different structures, and they've, some projects have like really taken a keen interest in them.
Yeah, and I know Zero Authority and us, we're excited to explore what we're going to build with StackerDAO and get that going eventually. But I think this is a great time to go into a demo, and this is super exciting too, because we have seen you and Ryan in the community. We know your journey to get to building DAO tooling, kind of the primitives, and this is the beginning of this explosion on stacks and DAOs on Bitcoin. So this is super cool for us too, to just be here in this moment during the depths of the crypto winter 2022, and where we could look back in time and say that was the start of the DAOs on Bitcoin. So super cool to just be in this moment right now.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited as well. And it's exactly what you said. I think we're going to see an explosion of DAOs launching on stacks. I think the main barriers that there just hasn't been infrastructure projects like StackerDAOs that have like allowed and enabled projects to launch DAOs. So I think that's been kind of, I think, the main kind of bottleneck. And I think now that we've launched, and you have potentially some other projects as well that will launch, I think you really are going to see an explosion of different just like Web3 projects building on Bitcoin. But yeah, I guess without, I guess I'll just jump right into it. So so let's just head into the app. So when you go into our app, you'll see lists of DAOs that we've launched. Obviously, this is much more so for kind of version 1 of our UI. Also, just so everyone knows, this is literally like our MVP of our front end. We will end up shipping kind of over the next few weeks a lot more features, a lot more improvements, and things will end up, will improve significantly. But for right now, you'll see kind of like a list of different DAOs that we'll launch, and we'll just keep adding them to this page. However, eventually we'll kind of have more of a search function. It is actually much more difficult than you think it is to make it where if you were just kind of like logging in with your wallet, you can find all DAOs that you're a part of. The reason why it's taking us longer to kind of enable a feature like that is just because we wanted to make our platform as like Web3 native, as Web3 as possible, which means that we didn't want to basically save a lot of your information. So like we're saving as little information as possible from you. Like we basically save almost nothing. But because of that, because we don't want to save your data, keep your data, it does kind of present some challenges on the front end. But anyways, so let's jump into MegaDAO. So real quick, this is the dashboard. Again, this is our MVP. There will be a lot more coming, but right now we're making the dashboard basically the vault page. The vault is just another name for a StackerDAO's treasury. And just so everyone knows, when I say like a StackerDAO, that's the name I refer to kind of like any DAO that's built on the StackerDAO operating system. So MegaDAO is a StackerDAO. And so right here on the front page, which again is also the vault page, you can kind of just get a snapshot of the vault's its assets. Pretty soon, probably within the next like 1 or 2 weeks, we will also roll out a list of transactions. So you will also see like the history and transactions of everything that's gone in and out of the vault. Also, just so everyone knows, you need to whitelist assets for the DAO. So anyone can just like transfer an asset to the DAO's treasury, to its vault. But for security reasons, you need to whitelist it for the DAO to actually be able to kind of like interact with it and send it out. The reason for this is because anyone can just send like a malicious token into the DAO's vault, and then if the DAO that interacts with it, it can end up like draining its whole treasury or basically handing over like a bunch of different things. A bunch of bad things can happen. You may maybe someone else will gain control of the DAO, etc. And so you will need to whitelist assets. We're also probably the next 2 weeks or so going to roll out like a button here where you'll be able to whitelist more assets, just so everyone knows. MegaDAO currently is whitelisted with basically I think almost every token that's on Alex. So when you bootstrap a DAO, basically when you're launching the DAO, you can kind of add in all of these different tokens from the start, so that way you kind of don't have to do it afterwards. So basically, like Alex token, obviously Mega token, all those tokens are whitelisted. So if anyone were to deposit them into the DAO right now, the DAO can interact with it and use it. Here you'll see coin, so that lists like fungible tokens. You go to collectibles and it lists NFTs.
If someone sent XBTC, would that already have been whitelisted?
Yeah. So XBTC is whitelisted. We basically took a list of like all tokens on Alex. So all the City Coins tokens, Banana token from Bitcoin Monkeys, obviously Mega token, Arcadico, Alex, really Stack Swap is as well. And then any kind of like additional tokens after that would need to be whitelisted for the DAO to interact with. Anyone can always deposit it in, but just the DAO can't kind of like send it from there until it's whitelisted. It's the same thing with NFTs, and it's the same for the same reasons, security concerns. Mm-hmm. And just so everyone knows, we whitelisted basically all of the Megapont NFTs. But if someone were to just like randomly airdrop or like somehow send an NFT to the treasury, again, it would need to be whitelisted for it to be able to send it out or do anything with it. All right, cool. And also, if you go to coins, right, I almost, just because I'm like so scared of people just kind of passing like or trying to pass like malicious proposals, I like almost hesitate and kind of like going into this. But also, if you click on the arrows here, you can it'll open up a proposal for basically a transfer proposal. So then you can transfer, right? So like, let's say I want to transfer 10 Mega tokens, whatever, to someone's address. This is for 0 to, I don't know, like whatever, to do dev work or something, right? You can then basically just submit this transfer token proposal directly from this interface. Just so everyone knows as well, you actually need to, so because our proposals are smart contracts, you actually need to deploy a contract first. So, and then you can submit it. So basically, if you go here, what you will do is when you go to submit and review, what you're actually doing is deploying the contract. Once that hits the Stacks blockchain, you'll get a notification here on action items. So he says, once your proposals have deployed, you need to submit them. So then you can go and click it for, and click into your proposal and be able to submit it. It also will show up in proposals here. So we actually have, so someone has actually already submitted a proposal. This is actually great. You can actually look at this. I can probably do this live. So on the proposal page, you will, there's not one right now, but had I deployed a proposal contract, once that hits the Stacks blockchain, you can go to proposals and you actually will be able to submit that proposal from this page. We have spoken with Hero about trying to basically condense that whole process into like one interaction on the front end, because basically right now we could set it up where basically you can kind of like deploy the contract and then call it on the same block, but the front end, that the wallets basically don't allow for that. And so we have talked to Hero, and they potentially down the line add this functionality in where you can actually deploy a contract and then submit it and like call the submit transaction all in one button. So that way you don't have to kind of like deploy it and then wait 10 minutes to be able to submit it. But also in the proposal tab,
Orlando, how are people so for Megapont, where are they having this conversation for the proposal? Is it in their Discord, or are
Yeah,
they
so
using Discord?
there's a Mega DAO channel in the Mega Font Discord now, and that's
Okay.
where kind of people are discussing the DAO, discussing proposals, etc. Um, and so on the proposals tab, in addition to like being able to submit any proposals that you've deployed, you'll also be able to submit what's called a social proposal. Unlike the transfer stacks proposals, which have automatic functionality, so once those are approved, they can be executed and the DAO will execute it. With a social proposal, I mean, it's technically an on-chain proposal, but like nothing really it's just text. And the idea being it's for some kind of like social task that necessarily obviously is not going to have any sort of like automatic functionality because it's not on chain. So it's for like on chain activity, and it could also be used as kind of like a what we like to call a feeler or like a temperature check. So let's say if you do want to make, let's say like an actual on chain proposal, maybe you want to get a feel for like what people will vote. You can also submit one of these social proposals and kind of here in the details, kind of like explain what it's for and what the on-chain activity is for, and then that way you can kind of get a quick temperature check and see how people end up actually voting for it. Also, if you note here, it says that 250 mega is required, so that's the proposal submission threshold. And the idea is that, so this is 1% of all tokens that were issued to Megapont ape holders. So there were 250,000 mega tokens that were issued to the ape holders. 1% is required to the proposal. The reason for this is it's to kind of prevent spam proposals. We just don't want someone buying like one mega token off of DEX and being able to just like submit like a million proposals and spam the DAO. And then if you go to proposals, you'll also see any proposals that are currently pending that have been deployed and actually submitted. So it looks like actually someone has already submitted a proposal. This is actually the first Mega DAO proposal that's actually live. And so I just clicked into it. If you see when you submit a proposal, and so these are Mega DAO's rules, but every DAO can have different rules. Really, it's just we kind of just come up with those rules with the team. It's whatever they want. So for Mega DAO, when you submit a proposal, there will be 2 days until voting actually starts. The idea being that it gives the community kind of like 2 days to discuss before you can actually like vote or anything. And if you look here, it shows like my own voting power. So I have like 722 mega tokens. It shows you kind of like when voting starts, when it ends. And then after, if the proposal is approved, then there's a 2-day window until it can be executed. The reason for this is, again, a security measure. It's called a time lock. It's a security measure in case some kind of malicious proposal kind of comes through and is somehow approved. And you might be thinking to yourself, how can a malicious proposal be approved? We have seen in like other ecosystems what are called flash loan governance attacks. And basically in a flash loan, so someone will basically submit some kind of like malicious proposal, and they'll usually kind of spam the DAO a bit. So what will happen is they'll send like 6 proposals, and then in that last proposal, and everything looks pretty innocuous, right? It looks like kind of fine, seems like normal stuff, and then in like the code of that very last proposal, they'll include like at the very end some sneaky spot, some kind of like malicious code, and then what they'll do is when that like last proposal is about to finally, like the voting period is about to end, at that final block, they'll get a flash loan, which is basically where you borrow tokens and repay it in the same block. So they'll borrow a bunch of tokens, right? The proposal, use it to vote on the proposal, and then pay back the loan all in one block. And that, like, basically they'll borrow enough tokens to be able to move the needle on the proposal to allow it to be approved. And so if you had proposals that would be able to be executed right away, that would be it. And like potentially like the whole DAO's treasury could be drained or something. And that has happened. There is a project I think called Beanstalk, or several months ago that literally just happened, and it didn't have a time lock. And so the time lock is there to kind of prevent against that. So it gives basically 2 days until proposals can be executed. So every StackerDAO kind of out of the box comes with what are called emergency powers. They sunset in 6 months. The project can elect not to have emergency powers. We highly caution against it. But for emergency powers, it allows a small group of people. Right now, that's Mark and Weasley, the Megapon founders, submit emergency proposals, and then 3 other people. Right now, it's Lewis, so Lewis from Ryder, Obsidian, the co-founder of Byzantium, and Ryan, the StackerDAO, my co-founder, StackerDAO Labs co-founder, to be able to vote on emergency proposals. And then with 3 out of 5, they can kind of like pass an emergency proposal, and so that will help to kind of protect the DAO in the event that like one of these like malicious proposals are passed. And so that's kind of like what that's about, the execution block. That's why there's a delay there. And then if you look at quorum, so quorum is about 5, so it's 5% of all tokens that have been issued to Megapon ape holders. The idea there is that you just want at least some participation in the DAO. All of these rules in terms of like the voting length, even the emergency powers, when it sunsets, and the quorum can all be changed via a proposal passed by the DAO as well. And so let's just like look at this proposal real quick.
Is that a part of the setup where you say, hey, our voting period is, let's say, 2 weeks, and then you kind of calculate how many blocks would pass in between that 2-week period, but that's like the de facto, and then you could change that later?
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, the reason why this is in blocks, and we'll probably update it to kind of have time estimates, but the reason why it's in blocks is because these are smart contracts. And so they don't really, like the way that smart contract kind of calculate time is through blocks. You can't really like just put in time. And so like the time lengths are estimates. So you see voting begins in about 2 days. Voting deadline is about 5 days. Those are, you see like, that it's about, because they're estimates based off of 10-minute block times. And so the start block and the end block just shows basically when this specific proposal starts or started, and when it actually and when it ends, when it can be executed. But yeah, the length of time for every proposal, that rule can change via a proposal passed by the DAO. And then so if you look at this proposal, actually no, we passed this. So a little inside info, we actually ended up initializing the DAO. And by initializing, I mean, so the DAO, again, is a huge smart contract. We deployed the smart contracts, I think it was like 11 days ago. So they've actually been sitting there for a while. And then we actually initialized it about 2 days ago. And when we initialize it, that's when it actually kind of like is like up and running, and all the contracts like connect to each other and can communicate with each other. So we initialized it about 2 days ago. And this morning we actually turned on the front end. So enable the front end, so anyone could have actually done stuff for a while, but we just kind of wanted to run some final tests. And someone in the community named Francis, we kind of ended up passing this proposal, which ended up kind of forcing our hand and actually making us kind of announce everything a little earlier. We were planning on announcing everything probably in about like 2 hours, basically like after this call, because we just wanted to run like some last minute things in the UI. But then he kind of forced our hand because I guess he saw that it was open, and he ended up submitting this proposal. So here we are. So now we ended up going announcing that we were live before this call. Well, welcome to crypto. I feel like that's the kind of thing that happens with crypto, because you just can't be sneaky about things. There's always like someone who's like trying to like mess around and break your stuff. But yeah, so his proposal was so I guess here there's a social proposal. The Megapon Robot Factory is a wonderful place to leave on more components, animate or not, to further hone the art of robot making. So again, this is something that's like basically asking, I guess, like Megapon, the company, to make, or maybe even like the community, I guess, I don't know, to basically help to make more robot factory components. And I think this is a good example of almost like a temperature check, right? Where basically you can get a good feel as like what the community actually wants. Kind of like on chain and with actual on chain voting. You can see the source code here. They'll take you to the contract of the proposal. Again, this is like a little less relevant for social proposals, since social proposal is just text. But when you have like proposals doing more, a little more complicated on chain stuff, you may want to verify the code yourself, and then you can just go and check it here. So once in 2 days. Basically, this window will change, and it will allow people to be able to actually like approve or deny the vote. And then if you go to governance, we're going to have more stuff here. But right now, the only thing we have on this tab is delegation. So you can delegate your voting power to anyone. It's an all or nothing vote, so I can't delegate like half of my mega or anything. I'm just delegating everything. We may potentially like roll out an improvement to that in the future, depending if like the community were to want it, if they want to kind of be able to delegate like fractions of their vote. And so here you would just kind of put in whatever wallet it is of the delegate you want to delegate to, hit delegate, and there you go. And then finally, the way our operating system works is you have a core DAO contract that executes transactions and keeps a list of enabled extensions. And extensions are what gives a DAO its form. So the treasury is an extension. Proposal submission rules is an extension. Voting is an extension. So we're gonna basically end up releasing kind of a bunch of different extensions as we end up developing them, including kind of changes, like what changes to the DAO structure. Also, if the DAO kind of wants to participate in any sort of like DeFi activity, city coins mining, stacking, all that needs to be enabled through extensions, and that we are actually going to be building in the future. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown of our platform. Again, this is our kind of V0 / like MVP of our platform. We already have a massive list of like what we want for the next version and what we'll be shipping. So hopefully people will be a little bit patient with us. But yeah, that's StackerDAOs.
It looks really great so far. This is really impressive. For all of the extensions, will that be something that you picture DAOs will be kind of voting on, where they say, hey, we want to add this addition to the DAO's capabilities, or is that kind of how you picture that now?
Yeah, well, it's not just how I picture it. It's the only way it works. Because for the DAO to basically do anything, it needs to do it via proposal. So it would need to pass a proposal to enable an extension.
Okay, and then when people are
that being said, when you're first launching a DAO, you can kind of like enable everything right there. So when it's being initialized, you can just add like certain extensions. It's the same thing kind of with whitelisting. Like before it's initialized, you can kind of like add anything to the DAO, and then when it initializes, everything that's kind of like on the DAO's list gets added when it's initialized. So as we kind of like end up developing new extensions, I'm sure like the more later DAOs will end up just kind of launching with a lot of these extensions already enabled, especially like the ones that kind of help to interact with like DeFi or like trade NFTs or interact with city coins, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense. They'll have a decent idea of what they're wanting to do within the DAO, and that does seem to work out.
Yeah, and I imagine some will probably just like enable it just because why not? Even if you don't end up like using any of the functionality like that a DAO gets from a certain extension. If I were launching a DAO, that's probably like I would just make sure you just like give me all the extensions basically. I mean, there are reasons why you wouldn't want to do so, I guess. But yeah, I guess it just depends on your use case.
Yeah.
Hey, for the treasury management, let's say, so Mega is a good one, right? They have a token, they have the NFTs. When they have they're going to launch on Alex, so they're going to be a part of DEX. Does a treasury automatically, when there's the swapping between Mega token, Stacks, or Alex, does a treasury get a percentage of that? Can you set it up to receive that reward?
You can. I think that would have to be basically based off of Alex. So I think the way Alex works is that all the protocol fees go to Alex. I don't think they go. I could be wrong. At least the way DEXs work generally is that the protocol fees go to the DEX protocol, and they don't really accrue to like that token or that token's DAO. It just goes to like the DEX. But in any sort of protocol or literally anything you want, it's just a contract. So you can always just have some sort of like some tokens go to a DAO's vault. You just have to add in that contract, add in the vault's address, into that contract that's kind of like distributing the like revenue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Also another thing, kind of somewhat related. Every StackerDAO has the ability to own external ownable contracts. So if you want a DAO to kind of like, if you want the DAO to manage a protocol, or just any other contracts, like let's say if it has its own token, you want the DAO to manage the token contract so it can like mint new tokens or burn tokens. It can do so. That core DAO contract can be the owner of external contracts, and that way the DAO can pass proposals to make changes to those contracts, like different protocol changes or whatever.
That's really powerful. Yeah, I was going to ask about the emergency powers that you guys have set forth so far. Just kind of curious if we could dive into that a little bit, because I know there's all kinds of stuff that happens on Ethereum or Solana, and we're still pretty new to DAOs here in Stacks, so just interested to hear the attack vectors that you guys are trying to prevent from happening.
Yeah, so the major one I think is just some kind of like, again, governance attack. The other thing, it's not even an attack vector, but just like an issue that can happen is if if you set the DAO's rules where, I don't know, like let's say you have quorum being 10% of your tokens, right? And if that ends up being way too optimistic, especially because maybe with your token, there's a reason why people like wouldn't use it in governance. Like maybe people lock up their tokens for staking, maybe they use it for other things. I don't know, like maybe there's like some other reason why they lock up their tokens. So there's not actually like a lot of tokens that are available for governance. It could be a situation where very few proposals, if ever, end up reaching quorum, end up reaching that 10%, and the DAO's kind of broken, right? Because then it would need to pass a proposal to change its quorum threshold, and it wouldn't be able to do so because it can't reach quorum, right? So you're kind of stuck, and the DAO is literally frozen. And so in that situation, the emergency team can pass proposals to change quorum and lower it so that the DAO can actually be functional. So there's also things like that where the DAO can just kind of like break or get fucked up, that you kind of just want to potentially the emergency powers kind of help to guard against. And the thing is, for your DAO, you may not know what participation is going to be like in the beginning, right? Like you may think, oh yeah, definitely 10% will like end up participating, and you could be completely wrong, right? So you kind of need a period of time to kind of test that and see what ends up being a good kind of like quorum threshold. And there are also other things. Like we're new, our contracts are new, our platform is new. So like if there's ever an issue with like, I don't know, like something happens to our UI, et cetera, there's just so many kind of like unknown unknowns, right? No one has kind of launched something like this on Stacks yet. And so we think there's also it's just like kind of will behoove any project for at least a period of time and at least 6 months to kind of have those emergency powers on. And we understand, obviously, you want the product to be decentralized and you don't want someone to be able to kind of just come in and be able to potentially rug you. We completely understand that concern. And in fact, that's kind of the main reason why we built this operating system in this way and didn't just rely on multi-sigs. But we think at least in the beginning of a DAO and also just in the beginning of our own launch and for our infrastructure, it just kind of makes a lot of sense for this beginning period for emergency powers to be activated.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly smart. I mean, a lot of these protocols, they're going to be decentralizing more and more over time. And so when things are first starting, it's nice to have train wheels that make sure that everything stays on course.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. It's basically just progressive decentralization, especially because it is like they are set to sunset in 6 months. It is by default set to sunset in 6 months. I mean, DAO founders could change that if they request it. It can be less, it can be more, but we feel like 6 months is a pretty solid period. And then if the DAO wants to, the DAO can always extend it themselves. So if they want to extend it, they can extend it. The DAO can also, if they want, remove it at any given time. We kind of hope that DAOs won't do this for the reasons that I mentioned before, why we think it's pretty important to have. But yeah.
I really like that ability to do like a social proposal. It, if the so let's say the founding or like the core team is going to do a proposal, is it going to be different than the social proposal?
What do you mean by like what do you yeah what can you just like, expand that a little?
Yeah, so like if you're a part of the core team, you know there needs to be some upgrades to the protocol, so you submit a proposal and like to integrate a feature. Is that going to be the same process where someone can use the social proposal?
It depends. So if the DAO is the owner of those contract of those protocol of those protocol contracts, then the DAO itself could do it. It wouldn't be a social proposal. It'd be like a real kind of on chain, or it'd be a proposal for on chain activity. And then when that passes, the DAO contract itself will make those protocol changes. If the founding team is if they're still the owners of the protocol contracts, then yeah, that would be like a social. You would want to like submit a social proposal and basically kind of just like get basically just like it's like I shouldn't say off chain because it is technically off chain on chain, but
Mhm.
basically the vote will tell you as a founding team like, hey, make these changes since you guys are still the owners of these contracts.
Okay, because I was thinking under the proposals, if you go back to the proposals and
Yeah.
the core team is making that proposals, uh, will you just see it there under proposals?
Yeah, exactly. And each proposal is numbered. So here's MDP, right? Like 002. MDP being standing for Make a DAO proposal. Um, we also, and again, we don't have this now, but on our like V1 upgrade list, you'd also be able to see who passed the proposal, and if they have like a .btc name, you'll be able to see like it's from that. So if it's like let's say um, like zero authority, right? You'd be able to see it's from like zero authority.btc, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is like the correct proposal and everything. But they're also numbered. So again, the founder, like in your Discord or whatever, can always kind of like highlight that this is the specific proposal they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, I could see like founders probably putting maybe like something out socially first, like, hey, should we do this or that first, and then once you get a pulse, you would then go, oh, okay, well, here's the product, and that would be more than likely the code, right? The update to the contracts or an additional contract or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for example, even if the founding team, let's say I'm just going to take like a DeFi protocol, right? Like a DeFi DAO. Like maybe the DAO is the owner of the external contract, but they still want to know if like the people, still want to get a temperature check to see if they want to make this protocol change. Because you don't as a dev like or as a team, you don't want to spend time like like building a bunch of stuff out and a bunch of code only to see that like no one really wants it. So then you submit this like social proposal, a temperature check. If it passes, gives you the green light. You go out and develop it, and then you'll then submit a second proposal. But this will be like an actual like live proposal that will actually have the code with the protocol change in it. And then when the DAO approves it, the DAO will execute that and actually like execute that underlying code.
Yeah, this is really cool to see the UI and the flow. I know when I saw some of those the mock-ups and the things you released a few weeks back, I thought, wow, this is really slick and it looks really nice and I'm just like so impressed by how it looks, how it feels, and how easy it will be. And I mean, once you guys have like customized URLs, you could just make this look like it's a part of your own domains.
Yeah, and that's something. I mean, there are teams that have requested. So I guess just to kind of provide a little more context, for our private beta, we are kind of again like working alongside teams. We're kind of taking a more hands-on approach, and so there are, and even once we open things up publicly, we will still work with teams to kind of like where we do what we call customized solutions, where we basically kind of engage in services agreements with different teams to kind of maybe, if they want something like kind of customized or tailored, whether that be like a specific DAO structure or a specific something with their UI. And so there are some teams that we've spoken to that actually want a kind of like a white label solution where they, you would go on their own website and basically it'd be pretty similar to like our interface here, but it just will live on their website and kind of have their branding and everything with it.
Have you had many conversations with anyone from Multisafe or from Console DAO? Because I'm just seeing like the composability here, and this is really great.
Yeah. So I've spoken to Chris a decent amount of times. So I think they may potentially. So, so with multi-sig, it's a little different, just because, or sorry, multi-safe, just because the way their treasury contract, basically, it's like you would have to choose between StackerDAO or multi-safe, and multi-safe is basically limited to just kind of a multi-sig. And it kind of gets into the modularity of our operating system. Multi-sig is basically one contract and basically has everything into like one contract. Whereas for us, right, who are the members, right? Who can like dictate who moves the treasury, et cetera, and call it for transactions? That all lives on like separate contracts, because we think that's a kind of like a better DAO implementation, since it allows different DAO voting structures, different DAO member structures, and it also allows DAOs to be able to kind of upgrade or change their structures later on, as opposed to being tied to this like one, basically just like a multi-sig. Also, it allows for more like decentralized DAOs and autonomous DAOs. So you can form a multi-sig with StackerDAOs, but you can also form kind of like mega DAO and autonomous DAO, where again, like whatever if it's a proposal for some on-chain activity, whatever the mega holders vote for happens. Whereas with a multi-sig, you're relying on those multi-sig signers. So we kind of ended up going, like not going that like or pure multi-sig route where you're kind of just constrained as a multi-sig, and that's what multi-safe is. However, Console, on the other hand, I don't know if I'm freezing, but Console is more of like a chat app, kind of for communication. And so while it is partnering with multi-sig or multi-safe, there's like, there's no reason why you can launch, where you wouldn't be like, or what I'm saying is like you can launch your DAO on StackerDAOs and then use like Console instead of Discord for communication. And actually, we've had discussions with them, and they can basically end up. It's kind of like up to them. I know they're working on a lot, so I don't know like when this will be, but I think eventually they will end up kind of adding like a StackerDAO module on Console, where you could potentially, you might be able to potentially even interact with some of our contracts and do so, like maybe like sort of proposal or whatever, kind of just like right there on Console. But I think that might be a little potentially further out. I think they have a lot of things to do. So right now, I know they just like, for at least for the use of their treasury, they're just focusing on integrating with multi-safe. But I think that might potentially be something like an integration that may potentially kind of happen down the line. But again, as of right now, there's like nothing stopping a project from like launching their DAO, like if they want like an autonomous DAO, launching their DAO and StackerDAOs, and then whatever like Console and launching using Console for communication instead of like Discord.
Yeah, I feel like I could see in maybe the distant future too, where you might have StackerDAO be the top hierarchy of an organization, and maybe there's these multi-safes that are subsidiaries, like you have an education team or advertising team, and so you would be funding those
Yeah.
people, something like that in the future.
Yeah,
I'm just
but also, yeah, no, but that's actually, so relatedly though, that is something, and I guess now maybe we'll turn to like our roadmap a bit. So that is so we're also looking into sub DAOs, and so like I mentioned, right now we do like you could just form like a StackerDAO multi-sig like pretty easily with us, but because we don't want to be like the multi-sig platform. So we actually like literally I had this conversation with like Chris like in January. Because we both kind of came up to the idea that like there is no multi-sig platform on Stacks, and I remember telling him like, we had this contract. We had this contract since January. Like, we had the capability to have a multi-sig since January through StackerDAO, but we were just kind of like, we don't want to be the multi-sig platform. We don't want to be Gnosis Safe because that's a much broader audience. Like most people who use Gnosis Safe aren't using it for a DAO, right? Like StackerDAO Labs has a Gnosis Safe that holds USDC that we receive from investors, right? Like a lot of people use like any team, any people, any random NFT project like uses a multi-sig, but they're not DAOs. And so we want to be hyper focused on DAOs. And so I remember like, we kind of had this problem. We're like, it needs this multi-sig. We kind of have it technically. We don't want to be the multi-sig project. And then they were like, Chris was like, well, Trust Machines, we kind of been thinking about it. Maybe Trust Machines might end up taking it on and being like having this multi-sig product. And so we were kind of like, if you guys want it, like please take it. But we do have like the capability to kind of have multi-sigs. We just we don't want to be like a multi-sig platform or product. So we are using it though for sub-DAOs. So we think multi-sigs are a great use case for sub-DAOs potentially. And so we will enable the functionality to form like a sub-DAO, which will be basically like a multi-sig, or it could be a sub-DAO could be anything. So it could be like a full-on like autonomous DAO with like NFTs or something as their members, or you could form like a multi-sig. And basically through our platform, we will kind of link the UI of the two, so that way you can kind of like the parent DAO can see into the sub DAO. We're also kind of looking into potentially developing the capability for the parent DAO to be able to almost like own the sub DAO. And what that means is that the parent DAO will be able to change the composition of the members of the sub DAO. And so we think that's really good potentially for sub DAOs that really are just kind of departments almost of DAOs. So like if the sub DAO's sole purpose is like marketing, or like protocol devs or something for that one specific parent DAO, the parent DAO then like the community may want to like be able to kind of like vote in who the members of the sub DAOs are, / if things aren't going well and the community's not happy, they can like alter that composition. So we are looking into developing, kind of investigating it now to be able to form these sub DAOs that are actually like ownable by the parent DAO and that whose composition can be changed by the parent DAO.
I really like I like that conceptually of the idea behind sub DAOs, and if there are those groups or there are initiatives within a DAO, you go off, you create the sub DAO, fund. You could use some of the treasury to fund that sub DAO and go off and it would be interesting too, like if you have another sub DAO that is decentralized, how their proposals are voted upon. Does it have the same have the same parameters from the parent DAO, or is it going to be completely different? So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out too.
Yeah, for sub DAOs, it'll probably, because you want sub DAOs to be faster, you want them to be like operationally efficient. That's kind of like the whole point of a sub DAO. And it depends, like you said, because you can create a sub DAO that kind of like receives funding to then kind of work on its own separate project. But then you also have these sub DAOs that are more kind of just like arms of a parent DAO. They function with more like almost like the different departments in the corporation. And so for those DAOs, especially, you kind of want them to be able to operate very quickly. And so like those will have like very quick like voting rules and proposals and stuff. So that way like they can kind of just like very like basically as soon as enough people, let's say it's like I don't know, like over 50% of the members need to vote on something for it to be approved. As soon as like 50% vote, it's approved, it'll be executed. So that there's no really real reason for a wait for these kind of more operationally efficient sub DAOs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so we're at time here, and we probably went over. So I appreciate your time today, Orlando. This was really cool to see the MVP and the first version of StackerDAO Labs, and I'm super stoked to see how many DAOs start building and going faster now that we have some tools that we can use on Stacks.
Yeah, definitely. Likewise, like I said, I think there's going to be an explosion of Bitcoin DAOs on Stacks. Looking forward to it. I think the real bottleneck has just been, frankly, the infrastructure. And so, we're going to see a bunch of new projects coming down the pipeline. I'm pretty excited for it. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, really thanks. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing what all you guys have built so far. This is really exciting. I'm gonna have to jump on the Mega DAO after this and take a look at that proposal. But yeah, thanks for spending time on your Friday afternoon. You guys are really doing great stuff.
And
Thanks.
where can
Likewise.
people find more about StackerDAO, and where can people contact you, Orlando?
Yeah, so you can just go on our website, StackerDAOs.com. And there, again, we have links to our docs, our GitHub, and you can kind of read through them to kind of learn more how the platform works, how our operating system works. And you can also sign up for our private beta there. You can also just reach out to us on our Twitter. It's at StackerDAO Labs. So you can our DMs are open. Lots of people DM us, so you can just feel free to DM us. Also, my own Twitter is at Orlando_BTC. Feel free to DM me. I'm always responding to DMs and always love to kind of chat it up with people about DAOs or anything, stacks or even Web3 related.
And you guys have Discord as well, right?
Oh, yes, and our Discord as well. And there's a link to our Discord both on our website on the top right and also on our Twitter as well. It's in our bio.
This was great. Thanks so much, Orlando, and you have a good weekend, and take care, James.
Yeah, take care, guys.
See you guys.
Take care.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.